This is Sticking Gray Bomb with Fine Taste for Idiots. I'm Mace.
And I'm Mex. What up?
So first, we're going to kick this show off with a wrist check. I've got the Seiko Speed Timer 6139-6012. I've had it for a couple weeks now, and just really loving the way it feels.
Love it. So here's my puppy in honor of the Big Boy auction. It's my Audemars Piguet. It's a offshore limited edition Alinghi in commemoration of the Swiss America's Cup victory team. So very nice piece. I love it for a lot of reasons. Mostly because it's not. I mean, not mostly, but because it's not a chrono, right? And a lot of these pieces are chronographs. So really like the color design. Really nice watch. I haven't worn it a little bit. I'm just happy to put it on this morning.
Nice. So Max alluded to it. We're going to be talking about an upcoming auction, the Antiquorum, that's occurring November 5th and 6th. And we'll get to that in a minute. But we thought we'd start the show with a new segment, 5 questions with Max. Next week, I guess, or next show, Max will throw some questions at me, and we'll just get after it. So the first one, when it comes to intro music, aggressive or calming?
Always aggressive, Max.
It was your pick to start off the show, so that's why I asked. Question number 2. It's 1985, 1986. Who did young Mex prefer, Hulk Hogan or Macho Man Randy Savage?
Okay, that's a good one, but I'd say because it's time, we're not quite baby Mex stage, but we're talking about kind of young Mex stage. 1985, definitely Hulk Hogan. I had not yet come to appreciate the beauty of the Macho Man at that point.
Yeah, so the follow-up is current day,
100%. Well, so again, it's like this is very esoteric, but Hulk Hogan also became kind of a douche, or at least character-wise, and then maybe just morphed into a douchey Hogan post wrestling career. But yeah, I mean, I would say as a body of work, I'd say one, understanding today exactly what wrestling truly is, and looking at a body of work, it's very hard to beat the Macho Man.
Right. Yeah, and I think we both realize, pardon me, that without Hulk Hogan, we probably don't know who Macho Man is.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, would we have loved wrestling as much as we did without Hulk Hogan, right?
Right.
Come on, brother.
All right. So question number 3, shampoo or conditioner?
Okay. So this is an eternal philosophical battle. Shampoo obviously goes on first and cleans the hair, but conditioner makes the hair silky and smooth, right? I think you'll agree to that.
Fair enough.
Now, in practical terms, Mace, you can imagine my curly locks do not need to be silky and smooth. First step, shampoo.
Fair enough. All right. This one might test you a little bit. What was the 2-digit code that Arnold used to open up the weapons bunker in Commando?
Yeah. So I actually had some notes about this somewhere, which I can't find right now. I'm going to say, again, and I would not remember. It's been a little while since I saw that film, but I'm going to say 23.
Very close. It is 13. 1-3.
Okay. Yeah.
I love when top line. Well, to be fair, and anyone who happens to view this doesn't realize that Mex and I recorded some time ago, or about Commando in the Arnie, and we just didn't. We talked for so long. The editing process has been an absolute bear, but we can maybe at some point you'll be able to see that.
So
Um,
when, yeah, after we've achieved fame and you're binge watching our channel, you will appreciate that comment.
exactly. The last one, dipping back into the Adam Sandler universe, chlorophyll or borophyll.
Now I know you're just trying to pay attention here. 100% borophyll.
And poor chlorophyll is caught in the middle of this.
Chlorophyll? More like borophyll. Right?
Right. I tinkered with maybe naming this particular episode that we're about to talk about. Antiquorum, more like antiborum. So
I like that, man.
maybe we can talk about that after the show.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know if Antiquorum would quite appreciate that.
Okay.
But
Well, they'd
yeah,
have to find out two of us are recording.
Right. Now, do you know, I don't know if you know this, but I own a borophyll t-shirt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I wore it out, and the person I was meeting just stared at it. She was an older woman, and she just stared at it for like 20 seconds. Just didn't know what to make of it. And I had to very dismissively tell her, don't look too much into this. This is from a movie that I like.
Right. Well, I just wore the sweatshirt that you gave me, Baruto.
Those are
Yeah, big time.
Someone who I had to explain it to a guy who was 5 years younger than me, which should have been his sweet spot, sort of
Yeah.
mid teens, but it didn't quite jog his memory. So and he's a big Yankees fan, so I'm surprised he didn't catch on.
Yeah, I don't look. I mean, anyone who's written a cursive Z will appreciate that. Okay, I think that's the most important thing about that scene, right? But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, honestly, yeah, I and you're much more patient than I am. I just don't have any patience for explaining stuff like that.
Right.
So I also have another T-shirt. I don't know if I told you this story, because this just happened a month ago. It's basically made by the same people, I think, and it's just a bowl of mashed potatoes, hot mashed potatoes, like mashed potatoes with steam coming out of it, and it says, "If it's going to be that kind of party."
Okay.
Right, ... Doesn't say, right, because hey, I'm wearing this T-shirt, right? It's family time, whatever.
Right.
I walked into a local store, and guy starts chuckling, nodding, and then he says, "Hey, do you know what comes after that?" And I was like, "That's why I'm wearing the shirt, brother."
Right. So
that's what I enjoy, right? I enjoy
right.
when
inside.
Clicks, right? Yeah. I enjoy when it clicks. That's not the way I enjoy it, but that's the intention, right? I don't like, if I have to explain it to you, let's move on. Done. Right. So we're going to start this auction preview section of the chat today. So as Mase teed this up, Antiquorum is having their Geneva auction on November 5th and 6th. It's a large auction, right? With a lot of pieces here, probably close to 500 timepieces, with 3 sections, across 3 sections of those 2 days. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 12 watches in total, 6 each, 3 that received an honorable mention. Didn't quite make it in top tier, either from a standpoint of personal preference or historical significance. And then we're going to look at our top 3, things that we're going to be looking at with a lot of interest, either because we may want to be bidding or just because these are kind of really dramatic pieces, right, and significant pieces. So I'm going to start. We're going to start with our kind of honorable mentions, and the first for me is Lot 89. It's a vintage Vacheron Constantin. And I like this watch for a couple of reasons. It's a 50s piece. It has a nice, really linen dial. So very clean piece, right? But I would say the linen dial, the crown was of interest to me, as well as those teardrop lugs. I really like, this is a 36 millimeter watch. So big by vintage standards. But when you have these fancy lugs, it really gives the vintage timepieces some nice presence on your wrist. So for me, this was a nice one. I might have ranked it higher if not for the estimate. I mean, the high end of the estimate is 10 grand, which seems very rich for me to invest in a piece like this. The second piece, on the honorable mention piece, or honorable mention list, is lot 147. This is an Audemars Piguet reference 25860. So the Kasparov. I've owned a piece like this. I think this is by far the most elegant sports watch on the market today. Okay, discontinued 15 years ago, probably. One of the reasons for its elegance, it's a 39 millimeter case. The modern, if you will, the modern Royal Oak chronos are 41, and it's just so beautiful. So I put this on the list. Again, I actually sold my Kasparov in March of this year, I believe, to take advantage of the sky high prices. I would love to acquire another Kasparov, but now is definitely not the time. And then the final piece. Actually, I'm not going to cheat here and talk about 4 pieces, but the Vulcain, there's a limited edition. So basically lots 230 to 233 are limited edition Vulcain Olympic kind of commemorative pieces. The one that caught my mind was it's a cricket, one of 28. That's a world time. So it's very nice. It's got almost an enamel dial with a picture of an Olympic kind of runner carrying a torch. But the world time, I mean, not that we know Vulcain as world time, big boy movements, but I thought, at least from a collectability standpoint and aesthetic standpoint, it was worthy of note. So yeah. Mase, yeah, what were you looking at from a bottom of the or last group?
Yeah, so the first one out for me was lot 358. It's a JLC. It was sold through Hermes retail stores. Has kind of that classic Universal Genève type of look to it. Patina dial. It's got a little bit of spots on the dial. Has day pointer, day and month. The day and month are just below the 12 marker. And I'm not usually swayed by store or any sort of collaborations in that way or markings on a dial, but I thought this one was kind of interesting and probably spoke about that time frame. Some 60, 70 years ago, or maybe even longer, around kind of the connections and where these watches were sold. So really interesting, but I decided not to do it. The next one was lot 67. It's a Panerai PAM 00048. No reserve. The estimate was, I think, 2,000 to 4,000. And the Swiss francs in the US are basically a 1-to-1 at this point. So there was no reserve. So initially I was thinking maybe you can get a deal on it. But it's 40 millimeters across. And while I am interested in owning a Panerai, I think I'd want something in the more traditional sizing there. The third one is lot 29, the JLC Barracuda. It's the Master Marina. As I was reading the dial, I mistakenly read Master's Monster Marina. I was like, oh, that's cool. And would be totally out of character for JLC, right? Yeah. So
well, that would be the Cooter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. like Dukes of Hazzard.
Later model.
Yeah. So this is 37 millimeters. It's a 1971 model. It's got this hexagon shaped case, and I love those funky 70s cases. I tend to like them more with the metal bracelet. This one has a strap on it. It has an inner rotating bezel. And I usually think about this case shape from that era with chronographs. I think about the El Primero. You kind of see that in that kind of six-sided case. You don't usually see it in the dive, or at least I haven't seen all that many with a diver. So really thought it was interesting, and really looks like those kind of 60s divers. You know, there's definitely a very certain aesthetic with those divers that kind of have the similar black dial, similar indices, similar look. I just, in my head, I couldn't get the tool, diver, watch, and that K shape and put them together and make sense in my head. So those were my three out that didn't
Yeah.
make it to the list.
I thought for sure that would have caught your attention, Mace, because I think it's a nice. I mean, it looks like it's in great shape. It's right in your wheelhouse from an era standpoint. I've never seen one like this. And again, the bulky case says two things to me. It says very 70s. But again, I look at the legacy kind of squale cases of that era, and there's similarities there. So I think it's a nice piece. When you look at the reserve pricing, I mean, I don't know, from a liquidity standpoint, I don't know if 10 grand makes sense, but if you can get this for $5,000, 5,500, even when you have to factor in 25% buyer's premium, that might not be a bad buy. I mean, aesthetically, you could wear that watch anywhere.
So I had a note to myself, and I lost track of it. Was there a reserve on this one, or was there no reserve?
To be sold without reserve.
Okay. So, but yeah, I agree. I don't think I'm getting it for 1,500 or anything like that. But I was kind of thinking that was a little bit high, especially in the high estimate side.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, again, it's like, this is, guys, we talked about this in our kind of collection philosophy video. And actually, Federico Talks Watches made another kind of reference to this. We shouldn't think about watches as an investment, but watches definitely are assets.
Right.
And while we're definitely not here to give investment advice. I think it's helpful to be mindful of price points, because at some point, it's likely that you're going to have to part with a timepiece, and no one's going to be happy if you took a 50% or 60% haircut.
Right.
So it is very important to be mindful of value, particularly again in the auction context.
We chatted a little bit about this. Maybe this is a good segue before we get to our final three. Neither of us really looked at Rolex, and there were tons of Rolexes in this auction, including pieces that I'm certainly interested in, maybe old subs, or old Explorers, or even more modern day Explorer 2s. Some of the Tudors, the older Tudors, are kind of interesting, but I really skipped through them. And I know you did too.
I did. I mean, I'm not, again, when, we talk about value, and I'm obsessed with value in my collection today. I just don't feel Rolexes are giving me that value today. And so, are there collectible pieces? Absolutely. And this is a very personal piece of the journey. I'm not here to say, everyone run away from Rolex. No one consider Rolex, as part of their collection. Quite the contrary. And when you look at, I think this is the important thing, right? When you look at the big auction houses, they have some really amazing pieces, one of a kind pieces of real historical significance, owned by the House of Saud, owned by this celebrity. We'll talk about it in the case of my first, of the final picks, really unique pieces. And that's cool. That's really cool to see. And for some people, it makes sense in their collection. For others, it doesn't.
And I think for me, knowing how hot Rolex has been over the last, couple of years, right? And kind of really frenzy around acquiring them. The difficulties getting them at an AD and paying the premium at the in the gray market. I don't want to get caught up in that frenzy in an auction where it's something I fall in love with, and then I've overextended myself, or I've kind of like all of a sudden, oh, now I got to pay 25% on top of that, right? And then you're you just kind of kick yourself for having kind of gone off the deep end. So uh, that's where my head's at.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, and it's also, I think, worthwhile to talk about, auctions kind of fill different or serve different roles for different people, right? I don't know if I'm going to buy central pieces to my collection via auction. I want to buy kind of peripheral pieces, right? Because I want to have some dry powder to go out and pick exactly a piece I want, right? Because with auctions, you're somewhat constrained from a selection standpoint. Others, I think real big collectors do look at auctions as ways to address gaps in their collection. So again, and we're going to talk about this. It's not simply, we're not simply looking at pieces that, hey, I would bid on this, or I want to add this to my collection. Especially in my case, some of these pieces are way outside my, my ability to acquire. But certainly a collector out there will be acquiring these pieces, and they're very noteworthy for that standpoint.
Right.
Okay. So do you want me to jump in?
Yeah. Have at it.
Okay. So in terms of my final three, I'll start with lot 28. So I'm relatively new to the Speedmaster category. And those of you who know me know I'm starting a search for a particular to add a particular Speedmaster to my collection. So I've been looking at a lot of limited editions, and I kind of feel like Lot 28, this Speedmaster Apollo Soyuz, is in some ways the dream limited edition, or one of the top tier limited edition Speedmasters. Okay. I guess the significance for us, right? We talked earlier in the video about, 10-year-old Mex, right? I mean, this is a birth year watch, right? This was made in 1975, right? So we don't have a lot of these watches with historical significance that are so easily aligned with that birth date. So one of basically 500 made, beautiful kind of patina to the loom, that tritium loom, but it looks like it's in great shape. I mean, this is an amazing piece. Estimate is 35 to 55, so that's a big number for a Speedmaster. But again, it's historical. If we want to say it's historical provenance, right, or historical importance, and its provenance are without question. So that's top tier. That definitely caught my attention. The second piece I want to highlight here is probably a grail watch for me, is Lot 148. So I've made no secret about my love of AP. I feel like aesthetically, this is a brand I definitely connect with. And this is the, I mean, this is amazing, right, from a horology standpoint. So this is the Royal Perpetual Calendar. So dating back to 2000, so older, a couple of years older than the Kasparov that I highlighted earlier. 39 millimeter case. So again, very sleek, elegant case. And you have that perpetual, the AP perpetual calendar movement inside that. But the other noteworthy thing is this Yves Klein blue, right? Super rare. I had the occasion, the privilege of seeing a different watch at a recent Phillips auction that was this Yves Klein blue. I don't think there's really any camera that can really effectively capture the sharpness and the richness of the blue. You have to see it in person. Really remarkable. So the reserve on this is 150 to 250 K, right? Not pesos, K dollars. So yeah, I would say I probably I don't think there's any period of waiting for me to get into a watch like this. This is top tier, right? This is really something, an object of beauty that I will admire for many, many, many years.
Right. That would definitely put off adding the new wing to the Mex estate there.
Yeah, I would probably have to skip meals and refrain from buying anything else for the next 20 years.
Right.
And then maybe I would get there. But yeah, that's definitely a lifestyle changer. So the last one for me kind of harkens back to the first of my first three out, which is lot 406. Okay. And so in a subsequent episode, we'll talk a little bit about our experience buying from auctions. This is a vintage Patek. Okay, it's a time-only three-hand watch. Mase, talked about this earlier on one of his pieces. This was retailed by Houseman. Again, it has that level of significance or uniqueness, let's call it. Really nice. I mean, again, nice vintage watch, 36 millimeters. So again, easy to wear today, on the small side of a modern sizing, but you can definitely pull this off. About 1950s, give or take. It's referenced 2482. So really getting a nice watch. I love the applied indices on these vintage watches. Some are painted on and they feel a little chintzy. These are kind of basically little gold or metallic numbers or just regular indices. Really nice watch. Very elegant. Reserve or that, there is a reserve on this piece. Estimate is between 8 and 12. So, for me, I would say rich for a vintage piece, but still very nice. And you got some collectability here with that, with the retailer printed on the dial.
Okay. Cool.
So those are my three pieces.
All right. So my top three picks are really based on the reserve or the estimated prices that the auction house set for these three watches, and my surprise at how low they were compared to what I would have thought they would, or what I think they'll sell for. The first one is lot 413. It's the Patek World Time. Estimated price is 27 to 37, which I thought was low for, look, it was made between 2000 and 2006, 20 years old. Platinum case, 37 millimeters, less than 10 millimeters thick, 46 lug to lug, and kind of a standard 20 millimeter lug width. I personally worry that 37 might be too small, but it's got a pretty decent crown guard. It probably wears a little bit bigger. A cool feature on this particular model is at the 10 o'clock they have a pusher where you can advance the reference city that they have, which is really really pretty cool feature rather than kind of messing around with the other crown. So I really thought the estimate was pretty low. And I went to Chrono 24 to take a look at this particular model to see where they were. And really, by and large, they're selling between 50 and 60,000. So maybe the 37 plus 25% gets you right there, if that's what people are thinking about. But what do you think? Why do you think that might be? Why the estimate might be a little bit low there?
So these pieces. So you're right, Mace. I mean, I think, and Patek was every bit of the Rolex craze was transferred to Patek, right? Over the last, call it 18 months. Things have quieted down, and there are actually a lot of dogs within the Patek lineup. Okay. Now, I think it's hard to call a very elegant platinum complication a dog. Okay. And actually, Patek makes several, if I'm not mistaken, they make several World Time watches. I think this is probably the least desirable of them. Again, not to take away from the elegance of this watch, right? But I would say that between what you had lined out in terms of kind of like high end plus buyer's premium, with the fact that I don't think that a lot of dealers on chrono have factored in what's happened over the last 3 months. Okay. They may, again, I can't speak to the specifics. They may have a lot of money in these watches and don't want to let it go, right? Because that's what's happened. I mean, someone is going to get caught when the air comes out of the balloon and it's coming out of the balloon. Someone gets caught holding the bag.
Okay.
To marry, of course, right? But that may be what's happening on chrono. This is a beautiful piece. Yeah, this is a beautiful piece.
I thought it was great. I thought having kind of the gray center dial, I thought the 24-hour ring was really sharp looking. Do you think it has anything to do about when it was produced? It's not vintage. It's not kind of, relatively current model. Do you think it's kind of caught in between maybe, or do you think something, I know you kind of gave an opinion, but do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's an interesting question. I can't respond to it because I don't know the Patek range that well, right, of world times. I always, before the craze, I looked at this watch and I felt it was very basic for me. I don't know if the year has anything to do with it. I mean, typically, yeah, I mean, maybe that presents an opportunity for some value. But again, if you can get this, what I would say is if you can get this for 25, even before buyer's premium, I think I think that's a good buy. Particularly for a watch that has everything, right? It has full kit, right? Box and papers, original papers, and all that stuff. So you look at from a provenance standpoint, this watch is very clean, right? The thing I always enjoy, particularly about Antiquorum, is that, in a provenance standpoint, they try to link it back to something, right? I like this property of an Italian gentleman, right? I wonder how they would, if my watches came up to auction, I wonder how they would describe me. But
I could give him a couple suggestions.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. But I always found that entertaining.
Right.
When they list the provenance.
Right. Okay. So my next pick is lot 217, the Omega Speedmaster Alaska project. This was around 2008 when it came out, and I think this is a really cool watch. It's got a lot of funk there. And you know what? Omega also they stole from this, right? I mean, the Swatch Group stole from this when they did the Moon Swatch, right? The
100%.
Mars version of this, right, has very similar features. And they have this large red thermoprotective circular disc that you can slip over the watch. Gives a really funky. I mean, I haven't seen one in person, but that must really draw a lot of attention to your wrist. And it's got those famous, rocket shaped hands on the subdials. I think it's really a really interesting piece here, and the estimate there is $5,000 to $8,000. To me seemed incredibly low, and that's why I made it onto the list. Now, I had looked at this, I had kind of read about this watch, and I took a look and was like, oh, okay, so they're generally starting at around $20,000. I also took a look at Chrono this morning, and they're pretty much in the $20,000 to $33,000 range, with one outlier from Italy and $60,000. So
right, not to the downside.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at those scatter plots, right, and you kind of see everything kind of grouped around here. This guy was all the way over here. So,
right.
Did the Moon Swatch craze hurt the value of this piece? It's hard to say.
That's an interesting question, but I have to say no. Right? Again, I prefaced, any comment that I have basically saying I'm still new to this space. I'm by no means a speedy expert, but come on, Mase. I mean, this is limited edition, right? The lot after this is a lot 218. It has the same movement. It's not like, so you say, is it a cheaper movement? No, it's not.
Right.
the dial is unique and pretty, right? Aesthetically pleasing. This watch was never worn.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be inclined to totally agree with you that the estimate is way off. But here's the thing: the market solves these problems on its own.
Right.
Right. And so this is definitely a lot. I agree with you. I put an asterisk around to say, let's see what happens, because no one's going to buy. I guarantee you that this watch is selling for more than $8,000.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally
Right.
agree.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
The question is, how much more? Does it go to 20? Does it go above that? That will really tell you, what people feel. Now, again, I haven't seen other, and it's ignorance. It's not because I've looked and I haven't seen any. But it's interesting. It doesn't have a metal bracelet. It has a Velcro bracelet, right, or strap.
I think if you look at another picture, I think there's a spare Velcro, and then
Okay.
there was a metal bracelet in the picture.
Okay. Well, that's good.
If you
So,
online, there was.
Yeah, okay.
And it might not be in the catalog that you've got.
Good point. I see this here in the accessories. That's okay. Duly noted. In the picture, just in the catalog, it's just the Velcro bracelet. But again, it's like I'm grasping at straws to say why someone thought this. I think this is wild. It's totally outlandish and
Yeah.
unfounded.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bring up that whole moon swatch piece because that was some of there's a big uproar, right? The moon swatch came out and it's like, what the hell? This is going to damage the Omega brand. It damaged the Speedmaster brand. People aren't going to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a Speedmaster when you can get one for $260.
Right.
You're obviously not in the same universe of quality and materials.
Right.
But that was one of the big things voiced at the time, when the moon swatch
Of
came out.
course, right? But and again, from a marketing standpoint, you never want to dilute your brand. You never want to cause confusion. But again, if you're in the market for speedies,
Right.
A moon swatch is a nice kind of distraction, but it doesn't substitute.
Right.
Right. By maybe, again, maybe for, my son, that's a decent
Right.
substitution.
Right.
But that's what you're talking about. Someone who you can't afford, you're never going to afford a speedy, then go for a moon swatch. Otherwise, I mean, I look at pieces like this, especially, this is highly collectible, Mace.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Right. This is totally different than a swatch that doesn't have any, that's going to be produced as much as the swatch group decides they want to produce it.
Sure. Absolutely.
This is a nice one.
Yeah. So then my third pick, kind of the top pick, in terms of the level of my surprise, was the Lot 61 MB&F Mad 1 Red, the estimate of $2,000 to $4,000. The story goes that the blue version was sold to friends and family, very low, and then this was kind of the second wave of the Mad One. It was a lottery system priced at 2,900 Swiss francs, so in today's dollars, $2,900. And it was kind of highlighted as a tremendous value at $2,900, right?
Well, I mean, MB&F, you really can't touch MB&F watches for less than 50 grand. I mean, or maybe even six figures, right?
Yeah. And so took a Miyota movement and really heavily doctored it and modified it. And I'll say this, I don't typically love watches like this. These kind of, and I wouldn't say it's the same as a skeletonized watch, because there's so much more going on with MB&F, really bringing it kind of three-dimensional. Let's face it, these watches are inspired by spaceships, robots, the animal kingdom, right? You've got the frog. I mean, there's some amazing pieces in there that honestly don't necessarily look like watches. Some of them look like terrariums, and to get your hands on an MB&F for $2,900 would be a steal. And so for me, looking at the $2,000 to $4,000, there's no way that that this doesn't blow past $4,000. On Chrono, and this has no reserve, right? Which is kind
Right.
of a farce. It's not going for, $1,000. I would say it's going to go a lot more than the high estimate. Chrono 24 had it for in between 9,500 and 13,500, roughly. But I think it's got a chance to be in that area, being kind of the 10, 11, 12. And who knows, someone might get crazy and go a lot more, because the difference between, $10,000 and $100,000 MBNF, if you want one, maybe you go to 15, maybe you go to 18. I don't know, but
I agree.
I think it smashes the high estimate.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree 100% with that estimate.
Yeah. So those are my three. Should probably what we thought was going to be a couple-minute video. Probably ended up being another one of our 25, 30-minute videos. And I think our plan is after adding some pictures of these watches from the catalog and from their website, get it up in advance of the auction, and then following the auction, we'll follow up on our picks and see where they ended up, if we were right, wrong, or made to look like fools. Whatever happens. But any
Man
kind
in
of
your
thoughts there,
position
Max?
cannot be made to look ridiculous.
That's
Mase.
right. That's right. Now you get the hell out of here. I guess with that's as good as any to
That's
end.
it. Right.
All right. So if you like this, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell to be alerted to any of our new videos. So, and with that, we'll see you at the next one. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Out of time. Bye bye.